glad you mentioned who we are as a people. I want to know why. I was down in Homestead, Florida, about a month ago at the Child Detention Center, where our government has locked up almost 3,000 children.
And there are children, they're in cages.
They are, well, we don't know because they don't let anybody in. And they've made all the employees sign a non-disclosure agreement, so when you're standing outside this prison camp, they walk by you and they won't talk to you. You get arrested just for standing there. The government has silenced everybody, and this reminds me, and I know this may sound extreme, but the silencing, the throwing people into prison that are trying to help these children or families, giving them water in the desert, and locking up in an environment where the people in Homestead don't even know what's going on right in their own backyard. So my question to you, and I think you heard this before earlier today, but my question is, when you go to the Democratic Convention at the end of this month, would you drive the 29 miles over to Homestead and witness what's going on there and bring all the press with you?
I'm already trying to set that up now.
Yay! Thank you.
And by the way, look, folks, this isn't who we are. This is not America. You know, I mean, around the world, you're all wondering, watching somebody at a border snatching a baby from the arm, family unification. Look, guys, one of the reasons why we're the nation we are is there should be we have a right to protect our borders. We have an absolute right to protect our borders. But, you know, it sounds silly to say it, almost trite. You know, give me your homeless, give me those, you know, what's the Statue of Liberty about? It's about allowing people to be able to come and flee oppression. If they're coming only for economic purposes, then they got to get in line. They got to get in line. And they should get in line. And we should have an immigration policy that's rational. But the idea of separating children from their families, the idea of not allowing family unification, every one of you, unless you came across on a slave ship because you're an African American, every one of you came, the reason we're the people we are, and I really mean this. I had this meeting with Lee Kuan Yew, the former president in Singapore, who was sort of the Henry Kissinger of Asia, the guy who wrote extensively on the future of India, China, the United States, and Russia. He was a brilliant guy. He was in Mumbai speaking to a group of, that's the economic center of India, and I was over there as vice president. And I got a phone call, would I stop and see Lee Kuan Yew on the way to South Korea and then to Beijing? And I said yes. He wanted to talk to me because I had spent at that time more time with Xi Jinping, who was a leader of China, than anyone else had, because the President Hu, his president, and that's not a joke, and President Obama thought we should get to know each other because, in fact, it wasn't appropriate for the president to build that relationship with the vice president, but I should. And so, because he was clearly going to be the next president. And he wanted to talk to him about what was going on with Xi Jinping in China, and trying to figure out where China would go next. And he was very ill, but they had him in one of those Mandarin Square chairs, and he had a sash around him holding him up. And but he spoke perfect English, and it was, as my mother would say, sharp as a tack. And he's asking me these questions. And I remember looking up at the clock, and we'd gone about 10, 12 minutes, and I was told that I should be cognizant of the fact he was weak, although you couldn't tell by his voice. And I looked at him at one point, and I said, Mr. President, I said, what is China doing? And here's what he said. He said, they're in the United States of America looking for the buried black box. It was at the time when that airline room went down the Indian Ocean, they never found the box. And I looked at him like they're looking at me like, what the devil does he mean? He said, they're looking for the box that contains the secret that allows America to be the only country in the world in history to be able to constantly be able to remake itself. Remake itself. And I looked at him and I said, well, Mr. President, I'm getting old enough to venture an answer to that. I said, if they ever find that box, they'll find two things in that box. One, that in the United States, we don't worship orthodoxy. No matter what school, no matter how good or bad the school is, the kid challenges orthodoxy, even in the Catholic schools I went to with the nuns. And you challenge an orthodoxy, you don't get in trouble. That's why we're able to make so many new things. we're not afraid to break old things, to make new things. I said, there's one other thing that they'll find in that box. An unrelenting wave of immigration, interrupted by xenophobia that lasts between 2 to 10 years, but since the early 1700s, a constant wave of immigration. He looked at me and he said, why is that? He didn't understand my point. And I said, Mr. President, it takes enormous courage for my great-grandfather, Owen Finnegan, to get on a coffin ship in the Irish Sea in 1842, not knowing whether it's going to make it or not, and go to the United States, knowing no one or knowing nothing about where he was going. I said it takes people with optimism, determination, absolute resilience. And I gave an example. I said, somebody right now sitting in Guadalajara, Mexico, a poor family, and the father saying, I got a great idea. Let's sell everything we have. Let's give it to a coyote. They're the gangs that take them. Give it to a coyote. Have them take us across the border. Drop us in the desert where they don't want us. We don't speak the language. Won't that be fun? Let's go. Think of your backgrounds. How did your ancestors get here? The reason we've been able to cherry pick the best of every single culture, is the people who came, are the people who I said are resilient, who are determined, who are committed, who are unafraid. And folks, that doesn't mean we should open our borders. What it does say is those people who are fleeing oppression and seek asylum should at least be given a hearing. They should not be separated from their citizens. Without prejudice, the United States, it will change. We need a comprehensive immigration bill, but that's another 20 minutes, and I'm not going to do it.